I came home from a client dinner, opened my banking app out of habit, and froze. $360,000. Gone. Every cent I had saved over 8 years, every sleepless night, every freelance contract, every second job, every bonus stacked and counted for one goal, my first house. I blinked, refreshed the screen. Still gone. The notification history painted a story I didn't recognize. Login attempts from devices I'd never owned, password changes I'd never made, recovery emails redirected to addresses that weren't mine, my freelance platform accounts locked, my investment portfolio access denied. Even my personal Gmail showed suspicious activity warnings dating back 3 days. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. 3 days. How had I not noticed? Because I trusted, because I was careful, because I followed every security protocol like scripture, and still someone had walked through my digital life like they owned it. My hand shook as I scrolled through the transaction logs. Wire transfers, international payments, purchase authorizations for things I'd never bought. The amounts were surgical, never enough to trigger immediate alerts, but steady enough to drain me completely. This wasn't random. This was personal. I called the bank, heart hammering against my ribs. The representative spoke with the practiced calm of someone who delivered bad news professionally. The withdrawals were made legally by someone with joint access to your accounts, someone you added years ago for emergency purposes. My parents. The words hit like ice water. I'd added them when I first started working, young and naive and convinced that family meant safety. Emergency access only, I'd insisted, just in case something happened to me. Something had happened, all right, just not to me. I didn't call them right away. I didn't scream. I sat in my car on the bank parking lot and methodically documented everything. Screenshots of the suspicious logins, timestamps of the unauthorized changes, recovery email addresses I'd never seen before, account balances that had been methodically bled dry. The discipline that had built my savings kicked in again. If someone was playing games with my life, I needed to know the rules. But even as I gathered evidence, a sick certainty settled in my stomach. The timeline matched perfectly with Olivia's recent excitement about her study abroad program, the London opportunity she couldn't stop talking about, the program that cost exactly what had disappeared from my accounts. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Hope your client dinner went well, sweetheart. Don't work too late." The casual normalcy of it made my skin crawl. I drove straight to their house, silent the whole way there. Every red light gave me time to think, to hope I was wrong, to convince myself there had to be another explanation. But the evidence was too clean, too targeted, too perfectly timed. When I pulled into their driveway, the house looked exactly like it always did. Dad's truck parked crooked, Mom's garden perfectly maintained, the porch light glowing warm and welcoming. Everything normal. Everything the same. Except now I knew what they'd done to me. My father was in the backyard grilling. My mother was arranging roses on the table like it was any other evening. My sister sat with her legs crossed, scrolling on her phone, wearing a designer sweater I knew I hadn't seen before. "I need to talk to you," I said, barely managing to keep my voice level. Dad looked up from the grill, spatula in hand, smile automatic and bright. "Catherine, perfect timing. Your mother made that pasta salad you like." "Someone drained my bank accounts." The words hung in the air like smoke. Mom's hands stilled on the roses. Olivia's scrolling paused for exactly 1 beat before resuming. Dad's smile faltered, then recovered. "Drained?" He laughed, but it sounded forced. "Honey, that's impossible. Banks have security measures." $360,000. Everything I've saved for 8 years. Gone. Mom straightened, brushing dirt from her hands with deliberate calm. "Catherine, sweetheart, you're being dramatic. You probably just forgot your password and got locked out. These things happen all the time." I didn't forget my password. Or maybe you moved the money yourself and forgot, Olivia suggested without looking up. Her voice carried that particular tone she used when she was pretending to be helpful while actually being condescending. You've been so stressed lately with work, maybe you transferred it somewhere safe and it slipped your mind. The suggestion was so absurd, so perfectly crafted to make me doubt myself that I almost laughed. I didn't transfer anything. Well, then it's probably just a system error, Dad said, turning back to the grill like the conversation was over. Banks make mistakes. You'll call them tomorrow, they'll fix it, and this will be a funny story. I already called them. My voice was getting steadier, colder. The withdrawals were made by someone with joint account access. The silence stretched tight. Mom picked up another rose, examining it like it held the secrets of the universe. Well, that's impossible. We would never. The IP logs trace back to this house. Olivia's phone finally went still. She looked up for the first time since I'd arrived, and something in her expression made my blood freeze. Not surprise, not confusion, recognition, like she'd been waiting for this moment. That's ridiculous, she said, but her voice had gone careful. IP logs can be wrong. Anyone could have spoofed them. The fact that she knew what IP spoofing was should have surprised me. It didn't. Catherine, honey, Mom's voice shifted into the tone she used when she was managing me. Patient, condescending. I'm not accusing anyone, I said. I'm stating facts. Facts? Dad's authority voice kicked in. The fact is, you're standing in our backyard making wild accusations because you can't keep track of your own money. Maybe if you weren't so secretive about your finances, these mix-ups wouldn't happen. Mix-ups? Yes. Mix-ups. You've always been paranoid about money, counting every penny, hoarding everything. It's not healthy, Catherine. Maybe this is just your subconscious finally letting go. I stared at him, at all of them. My mother arranging flowers like we were discussing the weather. My father lecturing me about my relationship with money that he'd just stolen. My sister scrolling through her phone wearing clothes that cost more than most people's rent. You really think I'm that stupid? I said. It wasn't a question. Mom's face crumbled into wounded innocence. Oh, Catherine, no one thinks you're stupid. We're worried about you. This paranoia, these accusations, maybe you should talk to someone. Professional help isn't shameful. And there it was, the thing they always did. Turn my clarity into my instability, make my questions into my problem. I've seen the evidence, I said. What evidence? Olivia's voice was sharp now. Screenshots you took yourself? Bank statements you could have doctored? Catherine, you work in IT. You know how easy it is to fake digital records. The casual way she dismissed digital evidence she shouldn't have known how to fake told me everything I needed to know. I'm going to fix this, I said. Dad nodded approvingly. Good. Call the bank, sort out whatever confusion this is, and we can all move on. I'm not calling the bank. I looked at each of them in turn. I'm calling the police. The threat landed like I hoped it would. Mom's face went pale. Dad's jaw tightened. Olivia finally stopped pretending to scroll. Catherine! Mom's voice was pleading now. Please don't do something you'll regret. This is family. Whatever mistake happened, we can work it out together. Like how we worked out your mortgage payments when Dad's business failed? Or how we worked out Olivia's tuition? Or her car insurance? Or her credit card debt? Each item hit like a physical blow. Because they remembered now. All the times I'd been their solution. All the times my stability had covered their instability. That was different, Dad said weakly. That was family helping family. This is family destroying family. I turned to leave. Mom called after me, her voice climbing toward hysteria. Catherine, wait! Don't leave like this! We can talk about this! But I was already walking away, my phone in my hand, my fingers steady as I scrolled through my contacts. Mr. Hayes, the bank's fraud investigator, answered on the second ring. Miss Williams, I was hoping you'd call back.
Mr. Hayes's voice carried the weight of someone who'd seen this story before. I've completed the preliminary investigation into your account activity. I sat in my car outside my parents' house, watching through the kitchen window as they huddled around the table in animated discussion. Emergency family meeting. Damage control. What did you find? I'm going to be direct with you because you deserve the truth. The unauthorized access to your accounts originated from IP address 192.168.1.1, which traces to your parents' residential internet connection. The timestamps show consistent activity over the past 3 weeks, primarily during evening hours when most people are home from work. My grip tightened on the phone. 3 weeks? The perpetrator used sophisticated social engineering to access your email first, then systematically work through your financial accounts. They knew your security questions, your backup phone number, even your mother's maiden name, information typically available to family members. How sophisticated? This wasn't a random hacker, Ms. Williams. This person knew your habits, your account structures, even your spending patterns. The withdrawals were timed to avoid triggering automatic fraud alerts. Small amounts at first, then larger transfers disguised as legitimate transactions. Someone studied your financial behavior very carefully. Through the window, I watched Olivia gesture emphatically while my parents listened. Her designer sweater caught the light. The sweater that probably cost more than I spent on clothes in 6 months. There's something else, Hayes continued. The email address used to reset your passwords was created 2 months ago. olivia.w.london@gmail.com. Does that mean anything to you? My sister's name, her London study, created 2 months ago, right when she started talking about the opportunity. Mr. Hayes, what are my options? Legally, you have a strong case for fraud and identity theft. The digital trail is comprehensive. IP logs, email headers, transaction timestamps. If you want to press charges, I can connect you with our legal department. And if I don't? Then you'll need to secure your remaining assets immediately. Change every password, close every shared account, revoke all emergency access permissions. Assume anything they've had access to is compromised. Remaining assets? I sat still. What do you mean? Our investigation flagged several other accounts and investments tied to your Social Security number, a trust fund, an LLC, cryptocurrency holdings, and investment portfolios with different institutions. The perpetrators only accessed your primary checking and savings accounts. They seem to have been unaware of your other assets. A laugh exploded out of me, short, sharp, almost hysterical. Because of course they didn't know. They'd seen the numbers they expected to see, taken the money they thought was all I had, and never imagined there might be more.
They thought they knew me, thought they understood the careful, predictable daughter who saved every penny and shared every success. They never bothered to look deeper, never asked how I'd managed to save so much on my salary alone, never wondered why I was so calm about lending them money. Because they never really saw me. Miss Williams, are you still there? I'm here. Mr. Hayes, I need you to freeze all accounts immediately, every single one, and I need that legal referral. I'll send the information within the hour. One more thing, if you're planning to confront the individuals involved, I'd advise caution. Financial crimes within families often escalate when the perpetrators realize they've been caught. I looked back at the house. My parents were still huddled around the table, but Olivia was gone, probably upstairs, checking her own accounts, wondering if her access to my life was still intact. They haven't been caught yet, I said, but they will be. I hung up and sat in the darkness, processing everything Hayes had told me. The systematic nature of the theft, the months of planning, the casual way they dismantled my financial life while sitting around the dinner table asking about my day. My phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. Whatever you think happened, you're wrong. Don't do anything stupid. The message was followed immediately by another. "We're family, Catherine. Family forgives." Then a third, "You owe us this much after everything we've done for you." I screenshotted all 3 messages, adding them to my growing evidence file. Because that's what this was now. Evidence. Documentation. A case. They'd taught me to be methodical, to plan ahead, to always have a backup. They just never expected me to use those skills against them. I started my car and drove home, leaving them to their emergency meeting. Let them plan. Let them strategize. Let them think they still had control. Because while they were busy managing the crisis they'd created, I was about to become the crisis they couldn't manage. My name is Catherine Williams, and the war they started with my money was about to be finished with theirs. I drove to my parents' house the next evening with the fraud investigator's words echoing in my head. The logins came from this address, this exact address where I'd grown up, where I'd learned to be useful, where I'd been trained to give everything and expect nothing. My mother was arranging flowers in the front yard when I pulled up. She smiled and waved like nothing had changed, like her daughter's life hadn't been systematically dismantled from their living room. "Maya, sweetie, what a lovely surprise." I walked past her without responding and found my father in the kitchen, reading the paper. Olivia sat at the counter, scrolling through her phone. She was wearing a new leather jacket I'd never seen before. Buttery soft, expensive, the kind she used to point out in store windows and sigh about. "Nice jacket," I said quietly. She glanced up, almost startled. "Oh, this? I've had it forever." Liar. I knew Olivia's wardrobe better than she did. I'd helped her organize it enough times, listened to her complain about not having anything decent to wear. This jacket was new, and it probably cost more than most people's rent. My father looked up from his paper. "You seem better today. More yourself." More myself. As if the version of me that had panicked about losing everything was somehow fake, somehow less valid than the calm daughter sitting at their kitchen counter now. "I've been thinking about what you said," told him. "About passwords and misremembering things." "Good. Sometimes we complicate things unnecessarily." Olivia's fingers paused on her phone screen, just for a second, but I caught it. "You're probably right. I mean, there's so much to keep track of these days. Email accounts, banking apps, those freelance platforms. Did I ever tell you about the new client portal I set up last month?" I hadn't. I'd never told any of them about the portal because they never asked about my work, never showed interest in the details of how I earned the money they so casually assumed would always be available. But Olivia's head snapped up. "The one with the blue interface?" The kitchen went quiet. Even my father lowered his paper. The portal interface was gray. It had always been gray. But Olivia had just described the email confirmation screen, the one you'd only see if you were logged into someone else's account, trying to access something that wasn't yours. My mother walked in from the yard, humming. "What's everyone talking about?" "Just work stuff," I said, never taking my eyes off Olivia. She was staring at her phone again, but her cheeks were flushed red. "Livy got some exciting news today," my mother announced proudly. "Tell Maya about London." "London?" I kept my voice light, curious. Olivia shifted uncomfortably. "It's not definite yet. The study abroad program, full semester. She'll get to experience real culture, broaden her horizons." "That sounds expensive." "Well, that's what parents are for, isn't it? Supporting our children's dreams." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. But I was watching Olivia, and Olivia was watching me. The smugness from yesterday was gone, replaced with something sharper, nervous energy. The look of someone who thought they'd been clever, but was starting to realize they might not have been clever enough.
"How are you paying for it?" I asked directly. "We'll figure it out," my father said dismissively. "We always do. We, not they.
We. Because in this family, we had always meant everyone contributes and Olivia benefits. Everyone sacrifices and Olivia soars. Everyone plans carefully while Olivia gets to be spontaneous. I should go, I said, standing up. Long day tomorrow. Stay for dinner, my mother insisted. I'm making your favorite. My favorite. She had no idea what my favorite anything was. But Olivia's favorite, chicken parmesan with the imported cheese and the expensive wine, that she knew by heart. I can't. Too much work to catch up on. I headed for the door, but turned back at the last second. Olivia was still at the counter, still pretending to scroll through her phone, still wearing that leather jacket that cost more than she'd earned in her entire life. Livy, I said sweetly, that password reset email you mentioned yesterday, the one I supposedly forgot, did it go to my Gmail or my work email? She looked up, confused. What? Yesterday, when you suggested I'd gotten confused about passwords, you mentioned a reset email. I'm just wondering which account you think it went to, since I never told anyone about getting one. The color drained from her face. I smiled. Just curious. Sleep tight. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, a notebook, and every piece of documentation I'd been collecting since this nightmare started. If Olivia wanted to play games with my digital life, she was about to learn that I'd been building digital fortresses since before she knew what a password was. First, I secured everything. New passwords on every account, two-factor authentication enabled, recovery emails changed to addresses only I controlled. I moved money out of any account they'd ever seen, closing the joint savings entirely and transferring the remaining balance to a new bank across town. Then, I started digging. The beautiful thing about digital crime is that it leaves fingerprints everywhere. IP addresses, login timestamps, browser information, location data, it's all there if you know where to look. And I'd spent 8 years in IT consulting. I knew exactly where to look. I pulled up the login history on my email accounts. There it was, March 15th, 11:47 p.m., login from an IP address I didn't recognize. I ran it through a geolocation service and laughed out loud when the result came back. My parents' street address. Olivia had been sloppy. She'd used their home Wi-Fi for everything. The timestamps painted a clear picture. Late-night sessions when everyone else was asleep, systematic access to my accounts over a period of weeks. She hadn't just stolen money, she'd been studying me, learning my patterns, mapping out my entire financial life. I screenshotted everything. Login logs, IP addresses, timestamps. I saved email headers that proved when messages had been forwarded to accounts I'd never set up. I documented every suspicious transaction, every unauthorized access, every digital breadcrumb that led back to their house. But the real revelation came when I started tracing the money. The $360,000 they had taken wasn't just stolen, it was already being spent. Tuition payments to universities in London, airline reservations, shopping sprees at designer stores, a deposit on an apartment near campus that cost more per month than most people's mortgages. Olivia hadn't just hacked my accounts on impulse, she'd planned this, budgeted it, built her entire future around money she'd stolen from her sister. And my parents? The same people who dismissed my concerns, who told me I was overreacting, who'd made me feel crazy for being upset, they were co-signers on everything. The university enrollment, the apartment lease, the credit cards that were now being used to fund Olivia's pre-London shopping sprees. My father's signature was on all of it. My mother was listed as an emergency contact, a reference, a guarantor. They hadn't just enabled the theft, they'd orchestrated it. I leaned back in my chair and smiled for the first time in days. Not a happy smile, something colder, more satisfied. Because while they'd been busy congratulating themselves on their clever daughter's European adventure, they'd created a perfect paper trail that connected them to every dollar they'd stolen. But I wasn't done yet. I opened a new browser window and started moving money. Not the money they'd taken, that was gone, spent on Olivia's dreams. But the money they didn't know about, the real money I'd been building for years while they thought I was just a good little saver putting everything into one accessible account. Investment portfolios got transferred to new brokerages under tighter security. Cryptocurrency wallets moved to hardware storage they couldn't touch even if they somehow learned they existed. The trust fund I'd established 3 years ago, the one no bank investigator would find because it was managed by a law firm in another state, got additional funding and new beneficiary instructions. By dawn, I had created something beautiful, a complete picture of their betrayal and a completely secure foundation for my real future. They thought they'd destroyed me, but they'd actually just shown me exactly who they were and given me all the evidence I needed to protect myself from them forever. I made coffee and reviewed my work. Screenshots organized by date and time, financial records that proved the theft, legal documents that would cut their access to anything mine they'd ever thought they could claim. My phone buzzed. A text from Olivia. "Hey sis, can we talk today? Maybe grab lunch?" I deleted it without responding. The first thing I canceled was the auto pay on their electric bill. It was a small thing, really. $47 a month that I'd been covering for 2 years after my father's business had a temporary cash flow problem that somehow never got temporary enough to end. He'd asked so casually just until he got back on his feet, and I'd said yes, because that's what the dependable daughter does. Well, the dependable daughter was about to become very unreliable. Next went the internet bill I'd been splitting with them because Olivia needed better Wi-Fi for her online classes, the same Wi-Fi she'd used to systematically rob me. Then the phone plan that had somehow grown from just add me temporarily to a permanent family arrangement where I paid and everyone else talked. But those were just the visible threads. The real damage was in the systems they didn't even know they depended on. The business credit line my father used for his contracting work, the one where I was a co-signer because his credit wasn't good enough on its own, I called the bank and removed my name, effective immediately. The credit limit dropped from $50,000 to $8,000 overnight. The investment account where I'd been quietly building my mother's retirement fund, because she'd never bothered to save anything herself, closed. The money transferred to a new account with only my name on it. The emergency credit card I'd given them just in case, that had somehow become Olivia's personal shopping fund, canceled. The replacement card went to a new address they didn't know about. I worked methodically, like I was debugging a system. Find the connection, trace the dependency, sever the link. Each cut was clean, legal, and completely within my rights. After all, they were my accounts, my credit, my responsibility. I was just choosing to stop sharing. The beautiful thing about being the responsible one for so many years was that I'd become essential to their financial ecosystem without them even realizing it. I wasn't just the daughter who gave them money. I was the backbone of their entire economic stability. And now, that backbone was about to disappear. My phone started ringing that afternoon. First my father, then my mother, then Olivia. I let every call go to voicemail and listened to them later while I organized my evidence files. "Maya, honey, there seems to be some kind of error with the electric company. Can you call them?" "Sweetie, my card was declined at the grocery store. Could you check on that credit account?" "Maya, I don't know what's happening, but my London payment was rejected. Call me back immediately." Error, declined, rejected. Never, "I stole from you and now I'm facing consequences." Never, "I violated your trust and maybe I should apologize." Just confusion and demands and the assumption that I would fix whatever was broken, just like I always had. But I wasn't fixing anything this time. Instead, I was at my lawyer's office signing papers that removed my name from every shared financial obligation I'd ever stupidly agreed to. The mortgage my father had talked me into co-signing when his credit wasn't good enough, my name came off, and he could deal with the bank directly. The car loan for the car Olivia drove but never paid for, no longer my problem. The various credit cards, business loans, and financial favors that had accumulated over years of being the family's personal ATM, severed one by one. "This is quite the disentanglement," my lawyer observed as she reviewed the paperwork. "I'm simplifying my life. And they're all aware of these changes? They will be."
By the end of the week, the phone calls had become desperate. Voicemails from my mother crying about how she didn't understand what was happening, texts from my father demanding explanations, messages from Olivia that alternated between rage and manipulation. "You're being vindictive. This isn't like you. We're family. Please, I'll pay you back."
But I wasn't responding to any of it. I was done being managed by their emotions, controlled by their needs, manipulated by their definitions of family loyalty. Instead, I was building something new. A life where I wasn't the backup plan or the fallback option or the dependable daughter who could always be counted on to sacrifice herself for everyone else's dreams. I was just Maya. And for the first time in 32 years, that felt like enough. The call came at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was making coffee, watching the sunrise through my kitchen window, when my phone buzzed with Olivia's name. I almost didn't answer. Almost. "Catherine?" Her voice was different, smaller. The golden confidence that usually dripped from every syllable had evaporated overnight. "My tuition payment bounced." I said nothing, just stirred my coffee and waited. "The university called yesterday. They're saying my financial backing has been revoked. They want me to pay the full semester amount by Friday or they're dropping me from all my classes." Her voice cracked. "Catherine, I don't understand what's happening." "Mm-hmm. And the flight to London, my card was declined at the airport. The airline agent looked at me like I was trying to commit fraud. Do you know how embarrassing that was? Everyone was staring." I took a sip of coffee. It was perfect. Strong, bitter, exactly how I liked it. How I'd been making it for myself every morning for 8 years while my family slept in, assuming I'd handle whatever crisis came next. "Catherine, are you listening to me?" "I'm listening." "I need your help. Something is wrong with all my accounts. My credit cards aren't working, my student loan portal says my cosign information has been updated, and I can't access half my online profiles. It's like someone is sabotaging me." Someone. Not me. Someone. "That sounds frustrating," I said.
"Frustrating?" Her voice pitched higher. "Catherine, this is my future. This is my life. I'm supposed to start the London program next month. I've already told everyone I'm going. I've posted about it. People are expecting updates." People. Her Instagram followers, probably. The audience she performed her perfect life for while I funded it behind the scenes. "Maybe you should call the bank," I suggested. "Or your parents. They seem to have strong opinions about financial management." The silence stretched between us. I could almost hear her brain working, trying to figure out why I sounded so different, why I wasn't immediately jumping into fix-it mode, offering solutions, transferring money, making calls on her behalf. "Catherine," her voice dropped to that manipulative whisper she'd perfected as a child. "I know we haven't always been close, but you're my sister. You're the only one who really understands how important this opportunity is. You know what it means to work hard for something." Work hard. Like I hadn't been working hard since I was 16. Like I hadn't sacrificed every weekend, every vacation, every moment of peace to build something stable while she floated through life on charm and expectation. "I do know what it means to work hard. That's exactly why I understand the value of earning what you have." What's that supposed to mean? It means maybe this is a learning experience. You've always been so good at those, according to Mom and Dad. Another pause. I could hear her breathing, probably pacing around her bedroom, the one I'd helped pay to redecorate twice because she needed better lighting for studying. "Catherine, what's going on with you? You're acting weird. Cold. Cold. Like the way she'd smirked when I'd stood in their living room trying to explain that my life savings had vanished. Like the casual way she'd suggested I'd simply mismanaged my accounts, as if 8 years of meticulous financial planning could evaporate through carelessness. "I'm acting normal. This is just what it looks like when I'm not fixing your problems." "My problems?"
Her voice shot up an octave. Catherine, what has gotten into you? This isn't like you at all. Wasn't like me. She was right. The old me would have already opened my banking app, calculating how much I could transfer to cover her tuition. The old me would have called the university, smoothed things over, taken responsibility for someone else's crisis. The old me would have felt guilty for even hesitating to help. But the old me had believed we were family. Maybe you should call Mom and Dad. I'm sure they have advice about managing your finances responsibly. I did call them. The desperation leaked through now. Dad said I must have made some mistake with my banking information. Mom said I was probably being dramatic about the amounts. They told me to figure it out myself and stop bothering them. Figure it out herself. Stop bothering them. The same parents who told me I was overreacting when I discovered the theft, who'd dismissed my panic as incompetence, who'd made me feel crazy for suggesting someone might have deliberately targeted my accounts. Well, I said, sounds like you have a plan then. Catherine, please. The golden child was begging now. I need help. I don't know what to do. Everything is falling apart and I don't understand why. I thought about explaining. I could tell her about the IP logs, about Mr. Hayes and his professional confirmation that the attacks on my accounts had originated from our parents' house. I could walk her through the timestamps that proved someone in that house had been methodically accessing my life while I slept. I could show her the evidence that turned her smug suggestions into obvious lies. But that would require caring whether she understood. And I'd stopped caring the moment she'd smiled and called me paranoid. I'm sure you'll figure something out. You always land on your feet. Catherine! I hung up. The phone buzzed immediately. Text messages. Rapid fire. You can't just abandon me like this. What happened to family helping family? I know you're upset about something, but taking it out on me isn't fair. Whatever I did wrong, I'm sorry, okay? Catherine, please just answer me. This isn't you. I turned off my phone and finished my coffee in perfect silence. They ambushed me at work. I was leaving the office building at 6:30 p.m., finally wrapping up a project that had kept me focused and distracted for most of the day, when I saw them. Dad leaning against his car in the parking garage, arms crossed. Mom sitting in the passenger seat, her face set in that particular expression that meant she was preparing for emotional warfare. Catherine, Dad straightened as I approached. Do we? I kept walking toward my car, keys already in my hand. Don't walk away from us, Mom called through her open window. This conversation is happening whether you like it or not. I stopped, turned, looked at them both. Dad in his weekend clothes, unshaven and tired. Mom in her church outfit, as if dressing nicely would somehow give her moral authority. Olivia came to us in tears, Dad said. She's scared, Catherine. She doesn't understand what is happening to her life. Neither did I said quietly. What's that supposed to mean? It means when someone's accounts get mysteriously hacked and their financial security disappears overnight, it's scary. When the people you trust most dismiss your fears and tell you you're being dramatic, it's isolating. When your own family suggests you must have done something wrong, it's devastating.
Dad's jaw tightened. That's different. Olivia's situation is clearly some kind of technical error. Yours was, well, you were probably just overwhelmed and forgot some passwords. IP logs don't lie, Dad. The words hung in the air between us. Dad's expression shifted, confusion flickering across his features. Mom went very still. What did you say? The fraud investigator traced the access attempts on Rye accounts. Every single unauthorized login originated from your house, your internet connection, your physical address. I kept my voice level, professional. Someone in your home spent weeks systematically accessing my financial accounts, my email, my freelance platforms. Someone who knew my recovery questions and had inside information about my security protocols. Mom got out of the car now, her face flushing red. Catherine Marie Williams, what are you accusing us of? I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm stating facts, documented, legally verified facts. This is ridiculous, Dad said, but his voice lacked conviction. Why would anyone in our family want to hurt you financially? 360,000 reasons. The silence stretched. I could see them processing, remembering. The casual conversation about Olivia's London program, the offhand comments about expensive tuition, the way they'd all been so quick to dismiss my financial crisis while simultaneously knowing exactly how much I'd lost. You think Olivia? Mom started, then stopped. I think someone who knew my financial situation intimately, someone with access to my recovery information, someone who understood my security questions and banking habits, systematically compromised my digital life to fund their own priorities. I shrugged. The evidence speaks for itself. Dad stepped forward, his face hardening. Even if something happened, this reaction is way out of line. You're destroying your sister's future over money. Money, Catherine! Do you understand how petty that sounds? Petty. I repeated the word slowly. Let me ask you something, Dad. If someone stole your car, would that be petty? If someone broke into your house and took your television, your jewelry, your family photos, would that be petty? That's not the same thing. Isn't it? Someone broke into my digital life. They stole 8 years of careful saving, thousands of hours of work, my security, my peace of mind, my ability to trust the people I love most. They took my future and gave it to someone else without asking, without my knowledge, without my consent. My voice stayed calm, but something in my chest was burning. I protected myself. When my own family wouldn't, I protected myself. When you dismissed my crisis, I solved it myself. When you chose Olivia's comfort over my security, I chose my own well-being. By destroying hers, Mom whispered. By stopping funding it. The distinction mattered. They could see it in my face, hear it in my voice. I wasn't attacking Olivia. I wasn't sabotaging her future. I was simply no longer subsidizing it. Catherine, Dad said, his voice softer now, what do you want from us? What would it take to fix this? Nothing. Nothing? You can't fix this, Dad. You can't undo the choice to steal from me. You can't unsay the words that made me feel crazy for noticing my own financial security had been destroyed. You can't rebuild trust that you broke while smiling at me. I looked at both of them, these people who had shaped my entire understanding of family, of loyalty, of love. But that's okay, because I don't need you to fix it. I already fixed it. Myself.
I turned toward my car. Catherine, please, Mom called. Don't leave like this. We can work through this as a family. I stopped, looked back one more time. We're not a family, Mom. We're not even business partners. We're just people who happen to share DNA. I opened my car door, and that's not enough anymore. The lawyer's office smelled like leather and expensive coffee. Miss Rodriguez spread the documents across the mahogany table with practiced efficiency, while I signed my name to freedom. This removes your name from the joint account, dissolves the co-signing agreements, and terminates your guarantee on the home equity line of credit, she explained, pointing to each section. Once these are filed, you'll have no financial ties to your parents or sister. And they'll have no legal access to any of my accounts? None. Your credit reports will reflect the changes within 30 days. The notifications will go out to all relevant institutions today. I signed the last document. Catherine Marie Williams, written in blue ink across lines that severed 29 years of financial entanglement. It should have felt momentous, dramatic. Instead, it felt like finally exhaling after holding my breath for decades. There's one more item, Miss Rodriguez said, pulling out a thicker envelope. The property documentation you requested. The lake house. I had almost forgotten about it. The small cabin I'd purchased 3 years ago as an investment. It was listed under an LLC I'd created, buried in paperwork my family had never bothered to examine. They'd assumed the money I'd put into it was just another example of my responsible saving.
They'd never realized I actually owned it. The deed transfer is complete. The property is now solely in your name, no corporate structure needed. My phone buzzed as I gathered the papers. A text from an unknown number. Catherine, this is going too far. Dad had a panic attack when the bank called. Mom hasn't stopped crying. Whatever point you're trying to make, you've made it. Please, just call us. Olivia, texting from someone else's phone since I'd blocked her number. I deleted the message without responding. In the parking lot, I sat in my car and called Mr. Hayes. Miss Williams, I was hoping to hear from you. How are you holding up? Better every day. I wanted to thank you for everything you did to help me understand what happened. It was my job, but I'm glad we could provide clarity. Have you had any further security breaches? No, everything's locked down tight now. Different banks, different passwords, different recovery systems. 2-factor authentication on everything. Good. And your family situation? I looked up at the law office building, at the windows where Miss Rodriguez was probably already preparing documents for her next client's crisis. Resolved. He was quiet for a moment. I've been doing this work for 15 years, Miss Williams. I've seen a lot of financial fraud, but cases involving family members, those are always the hardest. People expect strangers to steal from them. They never expect it from the people they trust most. No, they don't. For what it's worth, you handled this with more grace and strength than most people could have managed. I hope you're proud of that. Proud. I thought about it as I drove home through the city I'd lived in my entire adult life, past the office building where I'd built my career, past the coffee shop where I'd spent countless early mornings preparing for client calls, past the bookstore where I'd browse during lunch breaks, dreaming about the house I'd buy when I saved enough money. Was I proud? I'd lost my family. I'd discovered that the people who were supposed to love me most had seen me nothing more than a resource to be managed and eventually consumed. I'd learned that my parents had raised me to be useful rather than cherished, and that my sister had inherited their view of me as a means to an end rather than a person deserving of respect. But I'd also learned that I was stronger than any of them had imagined, that the quiet competence they had exploited had made me formidable in ways they'd never considered, that the financial discipline they'd mocked had created options they'd never known existed. My phone rang as I pulled into my driveway, my mother's name on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. 5 minutes later, I listened to the message. Catherine, it's Mom. I know you're angry and I understand why, but this has gone far enough. Your father is sick over this. He's barely eating, barely sleeping. Olivia had to drop out of 2 classes because she can't afford the tuition, and she's talking about giving up on London entirely. You're destroying this family over money, sweetheart. I raised you better than this. I know I did. Please, just call me back. We can fix this if you'll just give us a chance.
Photos of family vacations I'd paid for. Birthday cards that thanked me for gifts but never acknowledged the person giving them. Certificates of appreciation from charities I'd supported in my parents' names. Christmas ornaments Olivia had made in elementary school that Mom had asked me to store because you have more space. All of it went into boxes destined for donation or disposal. My phone buzzed throughout the evening. Texts from relatives who'd heard some version of the story. Voicemails from family friends offering to mediate. Even a message from my old college roommate, somehow dragged into the drama by my mother's increasingly desperate outreach campaign. I responded to none of them. Instead, I opened my laptop and logged into the financial dashboard that showed my real net worth. The accounts they'd never known about, the investments they'd never suspected, the business partnerships they'd never imagined. While they'd been focused on draining what they thought was my life savings, they'd missed the actual foundation I'd built beneath their notice. $1.1 million in liquid assets, 2 profitable rental properties, a diversified investment portfolio, a consultation business that generated more monthly income than my old salary, a trust fund that would ensure I'd never need their help or approval ever again. They'd stolen my test money and thought they'd stolen my future. They'd actually just paid for my freedom. I closed the laptop and poured myself a glass of wine. Tomorrow, I would start looking at houses. Real houses. The kind I dreamed about during all those years of careful saving. Houses with gardens and guest rooms and space for the life I wanted to build. Houses where my family's opinion of my choices would never reach. 6 months later, I'm sitting on the back porch of my new house, watching Ella chase fireflies across the yard we now own. The mortgage papers are signed, the keys are mine, and every room smells like fresh paint and possibility. "Mommy, look," Ella calls, cupping her hands around a glowing insect. "I caught one." "Gentle hands," I remind her, and she opens her palms to let it float away into the summer dusk. My phone buzzes with an email notification. Another application for the Daughters Who Stayed Mentorship Fund. The program launched 3 months ago, quietly, through my financial advisors network. Women who've discovered family financial betrayal, who need legal resources and emotional support to rebuild independence. The fund covers lawyers, therapy, temporary housing, whatever it takes to help them establish independence. 47 women have applied so far. Each story different, but the pattern always the same. Trust exploited, boundaries violated, gaslighting disguised as love. I approve another grant. $15,000 for legal fees, enough to help a 24-year-old untangle herself from parents who've been using her credit since she turned 18. Ella runs back to me, grass stains on her knees and joy in her eyes. "Can we have s'mores?" "After dinner." "Promise?" "Promise." She settles beside me on the porch swing, her small hand finding mine. We swing gently, listening to crickets and distant traffic, and I think about how quiet my life has become, how peaceful. No crisis calls at midnight, no guilt trips disguised as family dinners, no walking on eggshells around people who see me as an ATM rather than a person. My family thinks they destroyed me by stealing that money. They think they broke something essential, left me damaged and alone. They were wrong about everything. They didn't steal my future. They bought it. Every dollar they took was a payment toward my freedom, proof of exactly who they really were underneath the performance of love. They handed me clarity wrapped in betrayal, and clarity, it turns out, is the most valuable gift anyone can receive. "Mommy?" "Yes, baby?" "I love our house." "Me too." And I do. I love the space we've created here, the life we're building away from people who would diminish us. I love the work I'm doing helping other women find their own paths to independence. I love the quiet strength that comes from knowing I can handle whatever comes next. My phone buzzes again. A text from an unknown number. "Saw your house on Instagram. Looks expensive. Guess theft pays well these days. Olivia, still trying to hurt me from whatever borrowed device she's using this week." I delete the message and pull Ella closer. "Ready for dinner?" "Ready." We walk inside together, leaving the fireflies to dance in the gathering darkness. 1 year later, I receive the letter. It arrives on a Tuesday morning, delivered by certified mail, requiring my signature. The return address makes my stomach tighten. Williams & Associates, Legal Services. Not a firm I recognize, which means they've hired representation. I wait until Ella is at school to open it. "Dear Ms. Williams, we represent Daniel and Margaret Williams regarding the family dispute that arose in 2024. Our clients seek mediation to resolve outstanding financial disagreements and restore family relationships damaged by miscommunication." Miscommunication? I almost laugh. They're still calling theft miscommunication. The letter outlines their position. I allegedly
overreacted to a family financial arrangement and caused significant emotional and economic hardship by withdrawing support. They want mediation, restitution, and a formal agreement about future family financial cooperation. They want me to pay them back for protecting myself. I call Ms. Rodriguez. They can request mediation, she explains after reading the letter, but you're under no obligation to participate. You have no legal ties to them anymore, remember? No shared assets, no co-signed debts, no financial obligations of any kind. And if I refuse?
Then they'll either drop it or attempt to file suit. Based on what you've told me about the evidence you have, I don't think they want to go to court. She's right. A courtroom would mean discovery, depositions, evidence presentation. It would mean Mr. Hayes testifying about IP logs and timestamps. It would mean their own words used against them, their dismissal of my crisis documented in text messages and voicemails I carefully saved. A courtroom would expose exactly who stole from whom. I draft my response that afternoon. I decline mediation. Any future communication should go through my attorney. Short, professional, final. That evening, as Ella and I make dinner together, she asks about the letter she saw on the counter. Is that from Grandma and Grandpa? Sort of. Why don't they visit anymore? I pause, considering how to explain betrayal to a 7-year-old, how to describe the difference between family and people who share your DNA, how to help her understand that love shouldn't come with conditions or require you to sacrifice your security for someone else's dreams. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt other people, I say finally. And sometimes, when that happens, the people who got hurt need to protect themselves by staying away. Did they hurt you? Yes. Are you sad about it? I think about this carefully. Am I sad? I was for a long time. I grieved the family I thought I had, mourned the parents I'd imagined loved me unconditionally, missed the sister I'd believed would choose loyalty over opportunity. But grief has seasons, and mine has passed. Not anymore, I tell her honestly. Now, I'm grateful.
Because now I know who really cares about me, and that makes the people who do care even more special. She considers this with the serious expression she wears when processing something important. Like me and you? Exactly like me and you. Later, after Ella is asleep, I sit at my kitchen table and write in the journal my therapist suggested I keep. Tonight's entry is simple. They taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about choice. They chose entitlement over empathy, exploitation over love. I choose peace over performance, boundaries over betrayal. I choose a future where my worth isn't measured by my usefulness to people who can't see my value. The letter today was their final gift to me, confirmation that I made the right choice. They're still trying to make me responsible for their consequences, still expecting me to finance their comfort at the expense of my own. I'm done being their backup plan. I'm done being anyone's backup plan. Tomorrow, I'll approve 3 more grants for the mentorship fund. Tomorrow, I'll help 3 more women discover that they deserve better than being someone else's financial safety net. Tomorrow, I'll keep building the life they thought they'd stolen from me, and I'll smile while I do it.
I close the journal and check the security system one more time. All doors locked, all windows secure, all alarms set. Not because I'm afraid of them, but because I've learned to protect what matters. In the morning, I'll donate their letter to the shredder and get on with the business of being happy. Some people are born into families. Others have to build them. I've learned I'm better at building.
Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.